The boardroom smelled like expensive leather and broken dreams. Sarah Chen sat perfectly still, her manicured hands folded on the polished mahogany table, while CEO Marcus Blackwood delivered the news that would shatter her world. Sarah, your contributions to Blackwood Defense Solutions have been adequate. His gray eyes avoided hers as he shuffled papers that probably didn't need shuffling. However, we've decided to restructure the strategic contracts division. Adequate. 8 years of 90-hour weeks, of landing contracts worth hundreds of millions, of being the youngest senior vice president in company history, all reduced to adequate. I see. Sarah's voice remained steady, though her pulse hammered against her throat. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows behind Blackwood, downtown Seattle stretched out in the morning drizzle, gray and unforgiving. And my replacement? Tyler will be taking over your responsibilities. Blackwood's tone brightened as if discussing the weather. My nephew has some fresh ideas about government contracting. Tyler Blackwood, 28 years old, MBA from daddy's alma mater, and about as qualified to handle defense contracts as a golden retriever was to perform brain surgery. Sarah had watched him stumble through presentations, seen him confuse classified intel protocols with coffee shop loyalty programs. Tyler has exactly 18 months of experience, Sarah said carefully. The Prometheus contract alone requires. The transition will be effective immediately. Blackwood's voice carried the finality of a judge's gavel. HR will handle your severance package. Thank you for your service. Sarah stood, her legs steady despite the earthquake happening inside her chest. She'd known this moment might come. She'd seen the whispered conversations, the way Tyler had started attending meetings that used to be hers alone, but knowing and experiencing were entirely different animals. Marcus. She used his first name deliberately, watching his jaw tighten. The Prometheus contract. The review board meets next week. Tyler doesn't even know. That's no longer your concern. He finally met her eyes, and she saw something there that made her stomach drop. Not guilt or regret, but calculation. Cold, predatory calculation. Security will escort you out. As if summoned by telepathy, 2 security guards appeared at the boardroom door. Sarah recognized them both. Jim Kowalski, who'd worked security for 12 years, couldn't quite meet her eyes. The younger guard, someone she didn't know, kept his hand resting casually on his radio. My office, Sarah said. I need to collect. Your personal items will be delivered. Blackwood was already turning away, dismissing her like a subordinate who'd overstayed their welcome. Good luck, Sarah. The walk to the elevator lasted a lifetime. Colleagues she'd worked with for years suddenly found their computer screens fascinating. Janet from accounting started crying at her desk. Through glass office walls, Sarah glimpsed Tyler Blackwood in what used to be her office, feet up on her desk, grinning at his phone. In the elevator, Jim Kowalski finally spoke. This is wrong, Sarah. Everyone knows it. She squeezed his shoulder. Just doing your job, Jim. But as the elevator descended 43 floors, Sarah's mind raced upward, connecting dots that formed an increasingly disturbing picture. The Prometheus contract, $300 million to develop next-generation missile defense systems, represented the largest government contract in Blackwood Defense's history. She'd spent 2 years nurturing that relationship, building trust with Pentagon officials, ensuring every specification met their exacting standards. Tyler couldn't handle a contract like Prometheus. He'd sink it within weeks, unless that was exactly the point. Sarah's Capitol Hill apartment felt like a museum of her former life. Awards lined the mantelpiece: Defense Industry Executive of the Year, Government Contractor Excellence Award, a framed photo of her shaking hands with the Secretary of Defense. Her laptop sat open on the kitchen island, 17 unread emails from colleagues expressing shock and outrage. She poured herself 3 fingers of Macallan 18 and settled into her leather chair, the one that faced the window overlooking Elliott Bay. Her reflection stared back. Asian American woman, 34 years old, black hair pulled into the severe bun that had become her trademark, wearing the charcoal Armani suit that had cost more than most people's rent. Her phone buzzed. Marcus Blackwood calling. She let it go to voicemail, then listened to the message. Sarah, I hope you understand this decision wasn't personal. Business is business. I'd appreciate your discretion regarding internal company matters. Enjoy your time off. Discretion. There was a threat wrapped in velvet, soft but unmistakable. Sarah deleted the message and opened her laptop. Her corporate access had been revoked, of course, but she'd been in the defense industry long enough to maintain other channels. Her fingers flew across the keyboard, reaching out to contacts throughout the Pentagon, NATO, and various defense contractors. The response came within an hour. Colonel Patricia Hayes, her primary contact at the Defense Acquisition Office, agreed to meet at their usual spot, Pike Place Market, where classified conversations could hide among tourist crowds and fish vendors. Pike Place Market buzzed with its usual chaos of tourists, street performers, and vendors hawking everything from fresh salmon to handcrafted jewelry. Sarah found Colonel Hayes at their regular spot, a small coffee shop tucked between a flower stand and a shop selling vintage concert posters. Hayes looked every inch the career military officer, steel gray hair, ramrod posture, and pale blue eyes that missed nothing. She was stirring sugar into black coffee when Sarah approached. Patricia. Sarah. Hayes gestured to the empty chair across from her. Heard the news. I'm sorry. Business is business. Sarah echoed Blackwood's words with bitter precision. But I'm concerned about Prometheus. Hayes's expression tightened almost imperceptibly. Tyler Blackwood called my office this morning, introduced himself as the new project lead. And he asked if we could streamline the requirements to make the timeline more manageable. Hayes shook her head. Kid doesn't understand that those requirements exist for a reason. Missile defense systems aren't smartphone apps. Sarah leaned forward. Patricia, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest. Is there any chance at all, that Prometheus could be canceled? The older woman's coffee cup paused halfway to her lips. Why would you ask that? Because Tyler Blackwood couldn't manage a Starbucks franchise, let alone a $300 million defense contract. Either Marcus has lost his mind, or Sarah let the sentence hang. Or he wants the contract to fail. Hayes finished quietly. They sat in silence, watching tourists pose for selfies with flying fish. Finally, Hayes spoke again, her voice barely audible above the market noise. There have been some irregularities. Sarah's blood turned to ice water. What kind of irregularities? Questions about Blackwood Defense's financial stability, concerns about their ability to deliver on timeline. And yesterday I received a very interesting phone call from someone claiming to represent Blackwood's primary competitor. Kronos Systems? Hayes nodded. They seemed remarkably well informed about Prometheus specifications, details that should be classified at the highest levels. Sarah felt the world tilt slightly. Kronos Systems was Blackwood Defense's biggest rival, led by Elena Vasquez, a former Pentagon official with connections throughout the defense establishment. If Kronos had access to classified Prometheus intel, Patricia, I think Marcus is sabotaging his own contract. That's a serious accusation. It's the only explanation that makes sense. Sarah's mind raced through possibilities. Think about it. Tyler destroys the project, Pentagon cancels the contract, and suddenly Kronos Systems, who just happens to have all the right information, swoops in with a better proposal. Hayes finished her coffee and stood. Sarah, I like you. You're one of the few contractors I actually trust. But what you're suggesting, if you're right, we're talking about fraud, conspiracy, maybe even treason. I know. Then you also know how dangerous this could be. Hayes adjusted her uniform jacket. Be careful who you trust. And Sarah, watch your back. After Hayes left, Sarah remained at the coffee shop, her mind churning through implications. Her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. We should talk. Elena Vasquez. How had she gotten Sarah's personal number? Another text arrived immediately. Waterfront Park. 1 hour. Come alone. Sarah stared at the messages, every instinct screaming danger. Elena Vasquez was brilliant, ruthless, and completely unscrupulous. Meeting her could be professional suicide, or worse. But if Sarah was right about the conspiracy, Elena might be the only person who could provide answers. She finished her coffee and headed for the waterfront. Waterfront Park stretched along Elliott Bay, offering tourists panoramic views of Puget Sound and the Olympic Mountains. On a Thursday afternoon, it was moderately crowded with joggers, dog walkers, and ferry passengers waiting for the next boat to Bainbridge Island. Sarah found Elena Vasquez sitting on a bench facing the water, looking like she'd stepped out of a boardroom magazine. Designer suit, perfectly styled auburn hair, and the confident posture of someone who'd never met a challenge she couldn't conquer. Sarah Chen. Elena smiled as Sarah approached, but her dark eyes remained calculating. Thank you for coming. I almost didn't. Sarah remained standing, maintaining the high ground literally and figuratively. But curiosity got the better of you. Elena gestured to the bench beside her. Please sit. We have much to discuss. I doubt that.
Marcus Blackwood fired you this morning. Tyler took over the Prometheus contract. And now you're wondering why someone would destroy a $300 million opportunity. Elena's smile widened. Did I miss anything? Sarah sat down, mainly because her legs suddenly felt unsteady. How do you know all that? Because I've been watching Blackwood Defense very carefully, and what I've discovered, Elena paused dramatically, is absolutely fascinating. A ferry horn echoed across the water, long and mournful. Sarah watched the boat approach the terminal, loaded with commuters heading home to suburban lives she'd never experienced. Marcus is your client, Sarah said finally. Very good. Elena looked genuinely pleased. Though client might be too simple a term. Partner, then. Closer, Marcus needed capital for a hostile takeover. I needed inside information about Pentagon contracts, mutually beneficial arrangement. The pieces clicked into place with sickening clarity. You're buying Blackwood Defense. After the Prometheus failure tanks their stock price, yes, Kronos will acquire them for pennies on the dollar. Elena leaned back against the bench, completely relaxed. Tyler's incompetence will trigger the contract cancellation. Blackwood's reputation will be destroyed, stock price will crater, and I'll swoop in as the White Knight, promising to restore their former glory, while conveniently winning the Prometheus contract with your inside knowledge. Exactly. Elena turned to face Sarah directly. You were the only obstacle. Too competent, too connected, too likely to make Prometheus successful. Marcus needed you gone. Sarah felt sick. 8 years of loyalty, of building something meaningful, all sacrificed for a corporate power play. Why are you telling me this? Because I have a proposition. Elena's voice dropped to just above a whisper. Join Kronos, senior vice president position, 50% salary increase, stock options, and the chance to work on truly innovative projects instead of Marcus's second-rate operation. You're offering me a job after destroying my career? I'm offering you revenge. Elena's eyes glittered. Marcus betrayed you. Help me bury him completely. Sarah stood abruptly. I need time to think. Of course, but don't take too long. Elena remained seated, still smiling that predatory smile. The hostile takeover begins Monday. After that, opportunities become limited. What do you think will happen next? Share your predictions in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe for more thrilling stories. Sarah's apartment felt like a crime scene she'd stumbled into by accident. She paced between the kitchen and living room, Elena's words echoing in her mind. Join the conspiracy or become its victim. Those seemed to be her only options. But Sarah hadn't clawed her way to the top of the defense industry by accepting other people's limitations. She opened her laptop and began what she did best: research. If Marcus and Elena thought they'd covered their tracks perfectly, they were about to learn why Sarah Chen had been the youngest SVP in company history. First stop: financial records. Blackwood Defense was publicly traded, which meant certain documents were available if you knew where to look. Sarah accessed the SEC database and began parsing quarterly reports, looking for irregularities. What she found made her blood run cold. Over the past 18 months, Marcus had been systematically liquidating company assets. Real estate sales, equipment disposals, strategic partnerships dissolved, all disguised as operational streamlining in the quarterly reports. But the pattern was unmistakable. Marcus was stripping the company bare. More disturbing were the consulting fees. Blackwood Defense had paid $12 million to strategic acquisition consultants, a shell company that existed only on paper. When Sarah traced the corporate registration, it led to a law firm in the Cayman Islands that specialized in, according to their website, discreet financial restructuring. Elena hadn't been lying. This conspiracy went deeper than a simple hostile takeover. Sarah's doorbell rang. She froze, laptop open to pages of incriminating financial data. Through the peephole, she saw a young man in a delivery uniform holding a manila envelope. "Sarah Chen? Delivery for you?" She accepted the envelope, noting that the return address was blank. Inside, she found a single photograph and a handwritten note. The photograph showed her sitting on the bench with Elena Vasquez, their conversation clearly intimate and conspiratorial. The note was simple. Some conversations are better kept private. Marcus was having her watched. Sarah locked the deadbolt and checked every window in her apartment. Her hands shook as she pulled the curtains closed. This wasn't just corporate warfare anymore. It was personal and potentially dangerous. Her phone rang. Unknown number again. "Hello?" "Sarah." The voice was male, unfamiliar, artificially distorted. "Stop digging or face the consequences." The line went dead. Sarah stared at her phone, then at the photograph on her coffee table. 2 warnings in 10 minutes. She was definitely onto something important. Time to get help. Detective Ray Nakamura had been Sarah's neighbor for 3 years, and they'd developed the kind of friendship built on borrowed cups of sugar and shared complaints about the building's temperamental elevator. He was off duty when she knocked on his door at 8 p.m., wearing jeans and a Seahawks t-shirt instead of his usual police uniform. "Sarah? You look terrible." "I need help, Ray. Professional help." He invited her in, listening without interruption, as she explained the day's events. When she finished, he was quiet for a long moment, studying the photograph and the threatening note. "This is serious," he said finally. "Corporate espionage, fraud, possibly conspiracy charges. But Sarah, you don't have enough evidence for criminal prosecution." "What would I need?" "Hard proof of the financial crimes, documentation showing coordination between Marcus and Elena, evidence of the threats against you." Ray rubbed his jaw thoughtfully. And honestly, you'd need someone inside either Blackwood or Kronos willing to testify. I might have an idea about that. Ray raised an eyebrow. Please tell me you're not planning to do something stupid. Define stupid. Getting yourself killed for the sake of revenge. Sarah managed a weak smile. I prefer to think of it as justice. The next morning, Sarah called Tyler Blackwood. Tyler, it's Sarah Chen. I'd like to congratulate you on your promotion. His voice was suspicious, as it should be. Thanks, I guess. I'm wondering if you'd like to have lunch today. Compare notes about the Prometheus contract. Share some insights that might help you succeed. Really? His tone brightened considerably. Tyler might be incompetent, but he wasn't stupid enough to refuse help from someone with her experience. Really? How about that new place on First Avenue, noon? Sure, yeah, that sounds great. Sarah hung up and began preparing for the most important performance of her career. The restaurant was exactly what she'd hoped for. Busy enough to provide cover, but quiet enough for serious conversation. Tyler arrived 10 minutes late, looking like he'd borrowed his father's suit for the occasion. Sarah, I have to say, this is really cool of you. He settled into his chair, already reaching for the breadbasket. I mean, after what happened yesterday, I wasn't sure. Business is business, Sarah said, channeling Marcus's own words. But I care about the company's success. And Tyler, I'm worried about Prometheus. His face fell. It's complicated. More complicated than you expected? Way more complicated. Tyler lowered his voice, glancing around the restaurant. I spent all morning trying to understand the technical requirements, and honestly, I don't think we can deliver what they're asking for. What do you mean? The missile defense specifications. The computational requirements alone would need processing power we don't have. And the timeline? He shook his head. 6 months to develop something that should take 2 years? It's impossible. Sarah felt pieces clicking into place. Tyler, who set that timeline? Uncle Marcus. He said it was non-negotiable. Tyler paused, then leaned closer. Sarah, can I ask you something? Off the record? Of course. Do you think my uncle wants this contract to fail? There it was, the opening she'd been hoping for. Why would you ask that? Because nothing makes sense. The impossible timeline, putting me in charge when you were obviously more qualified, the way he keeps pushing me to cut corners. Tyler's voice trailed off. I think he's setting me up to fail. Sarah reached across the table and touched his hand gently. Tyler, I think you're right, and I think I know why. Over the next hour, she explained everything. Elena's proposition, the financial irregularities, the plan to tank Blackwood's stock price. Tyler's face grew paler with each revelation. He's using me, Tyler said finally. My own uncle is destroying the family company and using me as the fall guy. I'm afraid so. What do we do? Sarah smiled for the first time in 24 hours. We stop him. Sarah's apartment had been transformed into a war room. Charts and financial documents covered every surface, connected by colored string like a detective's investigation board. Tyler sat at her kitchen table, laptop open, looking overwhelmed but determined. "Okay," Sarah said, reviewing their progress. "We have documented evidence of the asset liquidation. We have Elena's admission about the hostile takeover. And we have Tyler's testimony about Marcus's instructions to sabotage Prometheus." "But will it be enough?" Tyler asked. He'd loosened his tie and rolled up his sleeves, looking more competent than she'd ever seen him in the office. "Not yet. We need proof of the coordination between Marcus and Elena. Phone records, emails, financial transfers, something that directly connects them." "What about the consulting fees to that shell company?" "Good start, but we need more." "We need—" Sarah stopped mid-sentence as an idea struck her. "Tyler, does your uncle keep a home office?" "Yeah, in his house on Mercer Island. Why?" "Because people keep their most sensitive documents at home, not at the office where employees might see them." Sarah turned to face him. "How well do you know that house?" Tyler's eyes widened. "Sarah, you're not suggesting—" "I'm suggesting we gather evidence to save your family's company and prevent a massive fraud against the U.S. government. By breaking and entering? By retrieving documents that belong to Blackwood Defense shareholders, which includes Tyler Blackwood." She could see him wavering. "Tyler, your uncle betrayed you. He's destroying everything your grandfather built. Are you going to let him get away with it?" Tyler was quiet for a long moment, staring at his hands. Finally, he looked up, and Sarah saw something new in his expression: determination. "What do you need me to do?" Marcus Blackwood's house on Mercer Island was exactly what Sarah had expected: a modern fortress of glass and steel perched on 2 acres of meticulously landscaped waterfront property. According to Tyler, Marcus was in Portland for a board meeting and wouldn't return until morning. "Security system?" Sarah asked, as they sat in Tyler's BMW across the street. "Motion sensors on all the doors and windows. But I know the code. It's my grandmother's birthday." "Cameras?" "Just the front door. The back entrance by the pool doesn't have coverage." Sarah studied the house through binoculars. "His office?" "Second floor, facing the water. Corner room with the big windows." "Any chance he keeps important files somewhere else? Safe deposit box? Storage unit?" Tyler shook his head. "Uncle Marcus doesn't trust banks. He keeps everything he cares about in that office." Sarah lowered the binoculars. This was insane. She was a corporate executive, not a burglar. But the alternative, watching Elena and Marcus destroy everything she'd worked for, was unacceptable. "Let's go." The back entrance opened onto a slate patio that stretched to the water's edge. Tyler's hands shook as he punched the security code into the panel beside the door. The light flashed green, and Sarah released a breath she didn't realize she'd been holding. Inside, the house was a monument to expensive taste. Italian marble floors, original artwork, furniture that cost more than most people's cars. But Sarah barely noticed the decor as they climbed the curved staircase to the second floor. Marcus's office was a study in controlled ego. Awards lined the walls. Photographs showed him shaking hands with senators and defense secretaries, and his desk was positioned to offer a commanding view of Lake Washington. "Filing cabinets," Sarah said, pointing to a bank of locked drawers behind the desk. You take those. I'll handle the computer. The computer has a password. Let me worry about that. While Tyler worked on the filing cabinets with a set of picks he'd borrowed from his roommate, "Don't ask," he'd said, Sarah examined Marcus's computer setup. Corporate executives were notoriously careless about personal cybersecurity, and Marcus appeared to be no exception. A small notebook beside his monitor contained what looked like password hints. Grandfather's ship, 1943. Mother's maiden plus birth year. First car plus lucky number. Sarah tried various combinations before hitting on the correct password. Eleanor, 1959, Marcus's mother's name plus her birth year, which Tyler had mentioned during their planning session. Marcus's email account opened like a flower blooming in fast forward. "Sarah?" Tyler's voice was tight with excitement. "Look at this." He held up a contract, formal, official, bearing the letterhead of Strategic Acquisition Consultants, the same shell company that had received $12 million in consulting fees. But it wasn't a consulting contract. It was a commission agreement. Elena Vasquez would receive 15% of Blackwood Defense's final acquisition price, plus a $10 million bonus for ensuring favorable market conditions. "He's paying her to destroy his own company," Tyler whispered. "Keep looking," Sarah said, turning back to the computer. "There has to be more." Marcus's email archive was a goldmine of incrimination. Messages between him and Elena dating back 18 months detailing every aspect of their conspiracy. Plans to manipulate the Prometheus timeline. Strategies for removing Sarah from the equation. Even discussions about disposing of problematic employees who might interfere with the transition. Sarah's blood ran cold as she read that last exchange. She wasn't just an obstacle to be removed. She was a potential threat to be eliminated. "Tyler, we need to leave. Now." "Why? Because your uncle just sent Elena an email saying he's coming home early. They're meeting here in 20 minutes. Tyler dropped the files he'd been examining. 20 minutes? 19 now. Grab everything you can carry. We're gone. They made it to the car with 3 minutes to spare, arms full of documents and a USB drive containing Marcus's entire email archive. As they pulled away from the curb, Sarah saw headlights turning into Marcus's driveway. "Holy shit," Tyler breathed. "We actually did it." "We got evidence," Sarah corrected. "Now we have to figure out what to do with it." Her phone buzzed with a text message from Elena. "Still thinking about my offer? Time is running out." Sarah stared at the message, then at the stolen documents in her lap. Elena and Marcus thought they were so clever, so untouchable. They were about to learn otherwise. The tension is building. If you're enjoying this story, hit that like button and let me know in the comments which character you're rooting for. Your support helps me create more incredible stories like this one. At 6 a.m. the next morning, Sarah sat in Colonel Hayes's Pentagon office, surrounded by enough evidence to sink a battleship. The walls were lined with commendations, unit citations, and photographs of Hayes with various military officials. Behind her desk, an American flag stood at attention beside a smaller flag bearing the Defense Acquisition Office insignia. Hayes examined the documents with the methodical precision of someone who'd spent 30 years evaluating defense contractors. Tyler sat beside Sarah, looking like a man who'd aged 5 years in the past 24 hours. "This is extraordinary," Hayes said finally, "and deeply disturbing. If these documents are authentic—" "They're authentic," Sarah interrupted. "Everything came directly from Marcus Blackwood's personal files. Then we're looking at conspiracy to defraud the United States government, securities fraud, and possibly conspiracy to commit assault." Hayes set down the contract between Marcus and Elena. "That last email exchange about disposing of problematic employees, that's a direct threat against your life, Sarah." Tyler shifted uncomfortably in his chair. "Colonel Hayes, what happens to Blackwood Defense? I mean, my grandfather started that company. Thousands of people work there. Good people who had nothing to do with this." Hayes's expression softened slightly. "That depends on how this plays out. If we can stop the conspiracy before it causes major damage, the company might survive. But if the Prometheus contract fails and the stock price crashes—" "Kronos completes the hostile takeover," Sarah finished. "Elena wins, Marcus gets his commission, and everyone else loses." "Exactly." Hayes leaned back in her chair. "The question is, how do we stop them?" Sarah had been thinking about that question all night. We need to catch them in the act, get them to admit their conspiracy on record. How? By giving them what they think they want. Sarah turned to Tyler. "You're going to call your uncle and tell him you're ready to sabotage Prometheus." Tyler's face went pale. "What?" "Think about it. Marcus expects you to fail. Elena is counting on that failure to justify the hostile takeover. But what if, instead of failing, you actively sabotage the project? What if you tell Marcus you're willing to destroy Prometheus deliberately in exchange for guarantees about your future position?" "That's actually brilliant," Hayes said slowly. "If Marcus thinks Tyler is cooperating, he might reveal details about the overall conspiracy. And if we're recording that conversation—" Sarah smiled grimly. Tyler looked like he was going to be sick. "You want me to wear a wire? I want you to save your family company and prevent a massive fraud against the American taxpayers." Hayes stood and walked to the window overlooking the Pentagon's central courtyard. "This is extremely dangerous. If Marcus or Elena suspects Tyler is working with us—" "Then we make sure they don't suspect," Sarah said. "Tyler calls Marcus this morning, says he's been thinking about their conversation, realizes he's in over his head, and wants to discuss terms for his cooperation. We record everything. And then? Then we spring the trap. By noon, Tyler was wired for sound and looking like he was heading to his own execution. The recording equipment, provided by Colonel Hayes's contacts at the Defense Criminal Investigative Service, was virtually undetectable. A small transmitter disguised as a shirt button, connected to a recording device no larger than a matchbox. Sarah sat in an unmarked van parked outside the Columbia Center, listening through headphones as Tyler entered the building that housed Marcus's executive offices. Detective Nakamura was with her, having been brought into the investigation at Hayes's request. "He sounds terrified," Nakamura observed. "He should be. If Marcus suspects anything—" Sarah left the sentence unfinished. Tyler's voice came through the headphones, tinny but clear. "Uncle Marcus? It's Tyler. I'm here for our meeting." "Come in, come in." Marcus's voice was warm, avuncular. "Sit down. Can I get you anything? Coffee? Water?" "I'm fine, thank you." "Good. Now, what did you want to discuss?" Sarah held her breath. "I've been thinking about what you said, about the Prometheus project, about how complicated it is." Tyler's voice was steady, controlled. "I don't think I can handle it." "That's honest of you. But I also don't want to let you down or embarrass the family name." There was a pause. Sarah could imagine Marcus calculating, weighing his nephew's words for hidden meanings. "What are you suggesting, Tyler?" "I'm suggesting that maybe it would be better if Prometheus failed quickly, cleanly, so we could move on to other opportunities." Another pause, longer this time. "That's a very mature perspective," Marcus said finally. "But Tyler, you understand what you're suggesting? Deliberately sabotaging a government contract? I understand that sometimes business requires difficult decisions." Sarah pumped her fist silently. Tyler was doing perfectly. "Indeed it does." Marcus's voice took on a different quality, warmer, more inclusive. "Tyler, I think you're finally ready to understand the real family business." "What do you mean?" "I mean that Blackwood Defense is changing, evolving, and those who evolve with it will be rewarded handsomely." "Rewarded how?" "Well, for instance, when our new partners take control of the company, there will be significant opportunities for advancement, senior positions with substantial compensation packages." Sarah's pulse quickened. Marcus was admitting to the conspiracy. "New partners?" Tyler asked, playing innocent perfectly. "Elena Vasquez is a remarkable woman, brilliant, connected, with a vision for the future of defense contracting. When Kronos acquires us, after the Prometheus failure damages our market position, she'll need experienced executives to manage the transition." "So you want me to sabotage Prometheus so that Elena can buy the company?" "I want you to recognize reality. Prometheus was always going to fail. The timeline is impossible. The technical requirements are beyond our current capabilities. The question is whether that failure happens randomly, causing maximum damage to our reputation, or whether it happens strategically, positioning us for the next phase of our evolution." Sarah exchanged glances with Nakamura. Marcus was confessing to everything. "What about Sarah Chen?" Tyler asked. She seemed to think Prometheus was achievable. Marcus's voice hardened. Sarah Chen was a problem. Too ambitious, too independent. She would never have understood the necessity of strategic failure. "Is that why you fired her?" "I fired her because she was an obstacle to progress. And Tyler, obstacles sometimes need to be removed permanently." Sarah felt ice water flooding her veins. Marcus wasn't just talking about firing people. "Uncle Marcus, what does that mean?" "It means that some people can't be allowed to interfere with important business decisions." Sarah was digging into financial records, asking questions about consulting fees, making phone calls to government contacts. She represented a significant security risk. So what happened to her? Let's just say that Ms. Chen's investigative instincts may have gotten her into more trouble than she bargained for. Tyler's voice was barely audible. Did you hurt her? I protected the family business, just as you're going to protect it by ensuring Prometheus fails on schedule. Sarah's hands were shaking as she tore off her headphones. That's enough. We have everything we need. Nakamura was already on his radio, calling for backup units to converge on the Columbia Center. Sarah, what Marcus said about you, about removing obstacles permanently, I know. She was pulling on a bulletproof vest, checking the .380 pistol she'd borrowed from Ray's personal collection. That's why we're going in now. The hell you are. This is a police operation. Tyler is in danger. Every second we wait is a second Marcus might realize he's being recorded. Nakamura grabbed her arm. Sarah, you're a civilian. You're not trained for this. I'm trained to think under pressure, to make life or death decisions with incomplete information, and to never abandon someone who trusted me. She pulled free of his grip. Tyler put his life on the line to stop this conspiracy. I'm not going to let Marcus hurt him. The Columbia Center's 42nd floor was eerily quiet when Sarah stepped out of the elevator. Marcus's corner office was at the end of a long hallway lined with expensive artwork and floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking downtown Seattle. Sarah could hear voices through the heavy oak door. Tyler and Marcus, still talking. She pressed her ear against the wood. Need you to understand the stakes here, Tyler. This isn't just about one contract. This is about the future of our family, our legacy. I understand, Uncle Marcus. I want to help. Good. Because there's one more thing we need to discuss. Your predecessor, Sarah Chen, has been causing some complications. Sarah's blood ran cold. What kind of complications? The kind that require permanent solutions. She couldn't wait any longer. Sarah tried the door handle, unlocked. She pushed it open slowly, staying low. Marcus's office was exactly as she remembered. Massive desk, wall of awards, panoramic view of the city. Marcus stood behind his desk, back to the door, apparently looking out at the Seattle skyline. Tyler sat in a chair facing him, his face pale but determined. Tyler, Marcus was saying, I need you to make a phone call. Tell Elena that Sarah Chen won't be a problem anymore. What did you do to her? Marcus turned slightly, and Sarah saw the gun in his right hand. What needed to be done? Uncle Marcus, you can't. I can and I will. This family has survived for 3 generations by making hard choices. Your grandfather would understand. Sarah stepped into the office, her own weapon raised. I don't think he would. Marcus spun around, his face cycling through surprise, anger, and calculation in rapid succession. Sarah, how nice of you to join us. Put down the gun, Marcus. I don't think so. His weapon was pointed at Tyler, who sat frozen in his chair. You see, I've realized that Tyler has been less than honest with me, recording our conversation, weren't you, nephew? Tyler's face went ashen. Uncle Marcus, Oh, don't worry. I've known about the wire since you walked in. Did you really think I'd gotten this far in life by being careless? Marcus smiled coldly. The question is, What do we do now? Now you put down the gun and surrender, Sarah said. It's over, Marcus. We have all the evidence, the financial records, the emails with Elena, your confession about the Prometheus sabotage. There's no way out. There's always a way out. Marcus's gun hand was steady. For instance, what if Tyler and I were victims of corporate espionage? What if a disgruntled former employee broke into this office, threatened us, and tragically, things got out of hand? No one will believe that. Won't they? You're the one who broke into my house last night. You're the one who stole private documents. You're the one standing here with a gun. His smile widened. I'm just an innocent businessman protecting his family. Sarah felt the trap closing around them. Marcus was right. The physical evidence made her look like the aggressor. But she'd spent 8 years in the defense industry learning to think strategically under pressure. Tyler, she said quietly, not taking her eyes off Marcus, are you still recording? The wire is still active. Good! Marcus, you just confessed to conspiracy, fraud, and attempted murder. Everything you've said in the last 10 minutes has been transmitted to federal investigators. Marcus's confidence wavered slightly. You're bluffing. Am I? How do you think we knew to wire Tyler in the first place? How do you think we got access to your emails, your financial records, your communications with Elena? Sarah took a step closer. We've been building a case against you for days. This conversation is just the final piece. Then I have nothing left to lose. Marcus's finger tightened on the trigger. Tyler chose that moment to act. He threw himself sideways out of his chair, shouting, "Sarah!" Marcus's shot went wide, shattering the window overlooking the city. Sarah dove behind a leather couch as Marcus spun to track Tyler's movement. "Stay down!" she yelled to Tyler, who had rolled behind Marcus's desk. Marcus fired again, the bullet splintering wood inches from Tyler's head. "You ungrateful little bastard! I gave you everything!" "You betrayed everything grandfather built!" Tyler shouted back. Sarah used the distraction to move closer, staying low behind the furniture. She could see Marcus's reflection in the broken window, his attention focused on Tyler's position. "It's over, Marcus," she called out. "Even if you kill us both, the evidence still exists. Elena will still go to prison. The conspiracy is blown. Elena is smarter than you think. She has contingency plans." "Does she?" Because about an hour ago, federal agents arrested her at Kronos headquarters. Turns out she kept copies of all your communications. Very thorough criminal, your partner. Marcus's face went pale. "You're lying." "Check your phone. I bet you have 17 missed calls from Elena trying to warn you." Marcus fumbled for his phone, keeping the gun trained in Tyler's general direction. When he saw the screen, his expression crumbled. "She betrayed me." Criminals always betray each other, Marcus. That's why conspiracy never works long-term. The sound of sirens filled the air outside the broken window. Seattle PD, arriving right on schedule. Marcus looked at his phone, at the approaching police cars, at Tyler cowering behind the desk, and finally at Sarah. His shoulders sagged with defeat. "I built this company from nothing," he said quietly. "My father left me a two-man operation in a rented warehouse. I turned it into a $1 billion corporation. And then you decided to destroy it for money, Sarah replied. That's not building, Marcus. That's just greed. He was quiet for a long moment, listening to the sirens getting closer. Finally, he set his gun on the desk and raised his hands. Tyler, he said, I'm sorry. I thought I was protecting our future. Tyler stood slowly, his face a mixture of relief and sadness. You were protecting your bank account. 3 months later, Sarah sat in the same Pentagon office where this whole adventure had begun, watching Colonel Hayes review the final Prometheus contract documents. Through the windows, Washington, D.C. sparkled in the early autumn sunshine. Everything looks perfect, Hayes said, signing the last page with a flourish. Blackwood Defense Solutions will deliver the first prototype within 18 months, with full deployment scheduled for the following year. Tyler, now serving as interim CEO, while the company searched for a permanent replacement, grinned like a kid who'd just aced his final exams. Thank you, Colonel. We won't let you down. I know you won't. Sarah's team has already impressed our technical review board. Sarah smiled at the mention of her team. Returning to Blackwood Defense as Senior Vice President of Strategic Development had felt like coming home, except this time she was working for a company that valued integrity over profit margins. The criminal trials had been swift and decisive. Marcus Blackwood received 12 years in federal prison for conspiracy to defraud the government, securities fraud, and attempted murder. Elena Vasquez got 15 years and forfeiture of all assets connected to the conspiracy. The shell company in the Cayman Islands had been dissolved, and every penny of the stolen money was being returned to Blackwood Defense shareholders. But the most satisfying outcome had been Tyler's transformation. Freed from his uncle's manipulation and given real responsibility, he'd proven to be a natural leader with genuine respect for the company's employees and mission. His first act as interim CEO had been to offer Sarah her old job back, with a substantial raise and complete autonomy over the Prometheus project. So what's next for Blackwood Defense? Hayes asked as they prepared to leave. Growth, Tyler said confidently. Ethical growth. We're hiring new engineers, expanding our research and development capabilities, and bidding on contracts we actually intend to fulfill. And Sarah's leading the technical development division? With complete authority, Tyler confirmed. No interference from the executive suite. No artificial timelines. No pressure to cut corners. Just the resources she needs to build the best missile defense system in the world. Hayes stood and shook hands with both of them. It's refreshing to work with contractors who understand that national security isn't just another profit center. As they walked through the Pentagon's corridors toward the exit, Tyler was quiet, thoughtful. Finally, he spoke. Sarah, can I ask you something? Of course. Why did you come back? After everything Marcus did to you, everything the company put you through, why didn't you just take a job somewhere else? Sarah considered the question as they passed through security checkpoints and emerged into the Virginia sunshine. Because Blackwood Defense was never Marcus's company. It belonged to the engineers who designed innovative systems, the technicians who built them, the sales teams who believed in them. It belonged to people like your grandfather, who started it to serve his country, not to get rich. And now? Now it belongs to people like you, people who understand that defense contracting is about protecting American lives, not padding bank accounts. Tyler was quiet again until they reached the parking garage. I got a call yesterday from someone at Lockheed Martin. Huge salary offer, corner office, company car, the works. Sarah felt her stomach drop. And I told them I already had the job I wanted. Tyler grinned. Blackwood Defense is my family's legacy. I'm not abandoning it again. That evening, Sarah sat on her apartment balcony, glass of wine in hand, watching the Seattle skyline light up as darkness fell. Her phone buzzed with a text from Detective Nakamura. Congratulations on the Pentagon contract. Drinks this weekend to celebrate? She was typing her reply when another message arrived, this one from an unknown number. You won this round, but the game isn't over. Sarah stared at the message for a long moment, then deleted it without responding. Elena Vasquez was in federal prison, her assets frozen, her reputation destroyed. If she wanted to send threatening messages from behind bars, let her. Sarah had more important things to worry about, like building the most advanced missile defense system in history. Her laptop chimed with an email notification. The sender was Lieutenant Colonel Maria Santos, Hayes's deputy, and the subject line made Sarah's pulse quicken. Classified briefing request. Project Olympus. Sarah opened the email and read, Ms. Chen, based on your exemplary work on Prometheus and your demonstrated commitment to national security, the Department of Defense would like to brief you on a highly classified project requiring your expertise. Project Olympus involves next-generation space-based defense systems with implications for global security. If you're interested in this opportunity, please reply within 48 hours. Security clearance upgrade will be expedited. Respectfully, Lieutenant Column Maria Santos Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency. Sarah leaned back in her chair, wine forgotten. Project Olympus, space-based defense systems, DARPA involvement. This wasn't just another contract. This was the kind of work that defined careers and shaped the future of national defense. Her phone rang. Tyler's name on the caller ID. Did you get the email? He asked without preamble. You got one too? Blackwood Defense has officially been invited to bid on Project Olympus. Sarah, this could be bigger than Prometheus, bigger than anything we've ever done. Sarah looked out at the city lights, thinking about the journey that had brought her to this moment. 6 months ago, she'd been a disgraced former executive with no job, no prospects, and a target on her back. Now she was leading one of the most important defense projects in American history, with the opportunity to tackle even greater challenges. Tyler, she said, I think we're going to need a bigger team.